I want to talk about giving and finances here at Anchor Church. I've got a few words on the board here next to me. I'll explain them in just a minute. I want to talk about giving because we've just been talking about the Galileas and supporting them as they go on mission to Malta. And there's been a couple of really great questions come in, like, are we the only church supporting them as they go? And how can we, as a freshly planted church that's not yet on its own feet financially, kind of give beyond ourselves? They're all really great questions, and I encourage you to ask your questions. I want you to know how the finances work here at Anchor. I don't want to talk about them all the time on Sundays because we want new people to be coming along and not feel uncomfortable all the time, but you do need to know how the finances work here at Anchor and how we're doing it. So to answer a few of those questions, hope this helps. We are one of 7 churches that are partnering with the Galileas as they go. And a number of those churches are, decent-sized, well-resourced churches. And of course, Chris and Christy are going with CMS, Church Missionary Society. And so Chris and Christy are actually in good hands as we all together give as we're able to support that mission. So that's worth knowing. In regards to how we give to them, it's as individuals like yourself and myself give through the Anchor Church bank accounts, but you tag your giving for the Galileas for Malta. And a number of you have already been doing that. I just got a report today that there's some number of really generous gifts that have come in already for the Galileas, so much so that the target that we had, it was a target set for 2021, it looks like we'll hit that easily and go above and beyond that, which is fantastic. But can I encourage you in your thinking about giving, because there has been a question, well, if we just give to the Galileas, what about and not here, how does that work? Well, in the end, you're responsible for the resources that God has entrusted to you to prayerfully decide how under Him you can, give those resources away. Now, you obviously got to pay your own bills, but we want to give as generously we can in our lives. So it's up to you, but my encouragement would be to think like this, is that first and foremost, your responsibility to give towards God's mission is in the place where God has planted you and put you to be on mission. And so those of you who live here in Coffs and are part of Anchor, this is our primary mission field. So we're primarily responsible for spreading the gospel here in Coffs. And that's the mission of Anchor Church, love God, to develop a growing community of people that love God, love each other, and make disciples. So it's important that we work hard to see Anchor Church established as a growing family that's reaching out with the gospel here in Coffs, and at the same time reach beyond ourselves. So one of the ways to do that is to think, okay, well, my primary responsibility is to give to see the gospel grow in the area where I'm responsible to see it grow, which is here in Coffs. And so I want to encourage you in your giving to continue to give generously towards Anchor Church as this church is established to grow the gospel in this place. And then on top of your giving to see the gospel grow here, on top of that, over and above that, give to other gospel ministries and other partners like the Galileas, or you might have a Compassion Child, or there might be some other gospel ministry elsewhere. Now, obviously, you need to figure out how you apportion that, but I do want to encourage you to think about your primary responsibility and then beyond ourselves to other ministries. Some people have said, surely you should get yourself established first before you start thinking as a church about giving beyond. But we thought, no, let's right up front lock it into our DNA that even as we're getting established and on our own feet as a church and caring about the gospel growth here, that we care about gospel growth beyond ourselves as well. So we're hoping to kind of lock that into our thinking and our values as a church. And so as you give towards the Galileas, can I just encourage you to understand that giving here to Anchor Church is giving to gospel growth here across the Coffs Coast. So can I encourage you to give generously here, and on top of that, giving to the Galileas and other gospel ministries. So there's a bit of a framework. Hope that makes sense. Feel free to push back on that, or you feel free to, under God, give away, what He's entrusted to you in the way that, you prayerfully decide to do it. But there's a framework to use. Now, I do encourage you to think about that framework, because here's where we are at as a church. This circle, would represent, you could say, the costs of running Anchor Church, this year in 2020. And we set ourselves a bit of a target to at least be able to raise a certain proportion of the funds that it is to, run Anchor Church this year. And the rest of that be covered by outside support. So we've still got a fair bit of outside support coming in for us, but that outside support will taper off over these first 3 years, and we will need to actually, cover our own costs, which just makes sense, yeah? But just so you know, it really is about a third of the costs. This is what we are attempting to pay for this year. And so the rest of this is coming in from outside support. So Anchor Church is being propped up this year quite significantly by outside support, which is really helpful for us as we get started, but obviously that needs to change over the next few years. So when I've been sharing with you that our giving here in Anchor is really encouraging and we're on target towards hitting our goal, on target towards hitting this goal here of covering about a third of our cost. And we're doing really well towards that goal. And so I want to encourage you. I think many of you must be giving very generously because we're doing really well. It looks like we'll actually hit that target, but just know that target is only a fraction of the cost of running church here. Wouldn't it be awesome to blow that out of the water? Wouldn't it be awesome to get towards paying for more of the cost of running Anchor Church quicker? That's what would be unreal. I would love to, throughout next year, actually get to the end of next year and actually be able to cover all our costs here. We're taking on Darcy Brown next year as an apprentice, and so there's some extra costs there, and there's risks associated with doing this, but we just want to prayerfully take on a level of risk and actually stretch so that we can grow the gospel here in Coffs. And so that's why I'd encourage you to make sure you continue to give generously towards Anchor Church to see this thing established, because as we get established, we'll be able to do more here and do more beyond ourselves as well. So there's a little bit of a framework. Here's where we're up to at the moment. It's encouraging, but we've got a long way to go over the next 2 years to actually cover all of our running costs. And if you'd like to look at where our running costs get apportioned, you're welcome to look at the budget. Ask Matt Evans, or you can ask me or whoever. Happy to explain how it all works. But there you go. There's a little glimpse of how our finances are working. Hope that's helpful. Feel free to pump with questions, and please let's grow in the grace of giving. Giving towards gospel ministry here and gospel ministry beyond ourselves. Think and pray about what God is actually placing in your hands. Now, you need to pay your bills, obviously. You need to put a roof over your head. You need to plan for the future. Yes, yes, yes. But as much as of what God has entrusted to you, give it away. Be as generous as you can with what God's put in your hands, particularly for the sake of explicit gospel ministry. Anchor Church is planted to grow the gospel in this area. It's our primary responsibility, and I encourage you to give generously towards the establishment of this ministry. And at the same time, let's see what we can do to support others. And God willing, over the years, He will use our efforts and He will use what He's entrusted to us for His name's sake in a way that we can just really celebrate what He does among us. Hope that's helpful.